Yes, guys. Welcome back to another episode. Teams like Brighton, and the FA Cup magic is still doing its usual spellbinding stuff. Mitoma with the wonderful finish there, Richie. I don't know about you, but what'd you take? What'd you take to the game?
Can we play you every 15 days? Can we play you every 15 days? Yeah. This game was an example that the previous 3-0 win from 15 days ago was not a fluke. Obviously, Liverpool were terrible in that game and Brighton were fantastic. This one was a much more even affair. Liverpool came out of the came out from the from the blocks, looking as if they meant business. And it was a real end-to-end game at the start. And obviously they took the lead. And then Brighton, I think it was pretty important that they got that fortuitous Lewis Dunk deflection to get them, to 1-1 at half-time. But then as the game wore on, it only really looked as if there was going to be one winner. And yeah, that Matoma finished. I mean, the composure just to sort of take that little touch, just knock it into the air and then volley it into top corner. I mean, that was stuff of dreams. But yeah, I think to do it without Caicedo as well. Obviously, we'll get onto him a little bit later. But yeah, I mean, a real a gritty performance in some ways. It wasn't like flowing at times, but as Roberto De Zerbi summed it up, in football, you need heart, blood, and balls, and Brighton just showed that fighting spirit to see them through, and I don't think anyone will really want them in round 5 of the FA Cup.
Yep, I totally agree. Like you say, I think Liverpool did improve massively, but then again, they set the bar so low in that match 2 weeks ago. That they just needed to improve. And I think they improved a lot in terms of sort of like that double pivot midfield. They pressed a lot there, and that kind of frustrated us. But we still managed to string that attack so well that we've been used to seeing under De Zerbi. I was just absolutely again Matoma's magic again. That guy is just an absolute brilliant find by the scouting team once again, and I'm just loving the fact that, like you say, like no Caicedo either, the guy who's been very much the backbone of our midfield, and yet we could still pull out results like that. It's brilliant. Yeah, there was a degree of luck in the first half. I mean, Lamptey's attempts then deflected off Dunk, sending Alisson the wrong way. It's those classic cup moments you get that you just need that little bit of luck to go your way, and then everything else follows, which is fantastic. So there's not much to say really, apart from let's bring on the next round there. But I think it's fair to say it's not just the Matoma magic. Sadly, we did see Ferguson hobble off, supported out, shall we say, to the dressing room. He got a really nice reception from the fans, which was nice. But I think I speak for everyone there going, why didn't VAR intervene? Why didn't it? Fabinho knew he was in trouble. Henderson knew he was in trouble. I think when he got the yellow card, you saw him just stand there and wait and just shaking his head, like grinning. Like it wasn't a grin, but it was just like I'm getting away with this here. He's gonna become a red card. I mean, I saw it when I saw it live. I thought it looked a bit tasty, and then I saw the yellow. I thought, okay, fair enough. And then I saw on Twitter and Facebook and just everywhere on my phone saying how lucky Liverpool were to have 11 players on the pitch at the end of the match. And then you saw in the highlights and you just think, how is that not? To me, that's serious foul play. Foot off the ground, no control, studs straight into the back heel. It wasn't even on the foot, it was on the back heel. Looked like as if it wiped out his Achilles. It turns Ferguson's ankle because of the sheer force. So to me, that's excessive force right there, which is a straight red. So I don't understand how the ref saw it as a yellow and VAR agreed. It was definitely a clear and obvious error in my book, but we find ourselves now potentially without Ferguson for a while. which would be, I'll be gutted for him because he's just such a brilliant player at the age of 18 years old. It would just be a shame that he's part of something really special here this season, and the likelihood of him being out for quite a while is, at the moment, it's quite high because there's doubts around how severe that injury is. And I don't know about you, but that really frustrated me, that moment.
Yeah, it's the one sort of blemish from an incredible day in Brighton's history. Yeah, I mean, Glenn Murray said, who was on, I think, ITV Punditry, said, I can't understand how VAR, I think Neil Swarback or Brick, can't see that as a red card. The player knows it because he was actually, there's an article that I use and there's a photo of him like going, because he knows that he's done wrong. Fabinho knows he's messed up. Yes, as the player knows it, so how do they not see it? So yeah, backing up your point there, don't know why they didn't look. Interesting enough, De Zerbi didn't. He was in. I guess he seemed to be in a fairly magnanimous mood because they had beaten Liverpool, and he actually sort of. Well, I'll quote to you what he said when he was asked about the Konate tackle on McAllister when he seemed to be the last man challenge, and then the Fabinho tackle. He said, I don't like to speak about this. I think against Leicester, there was an incredible penalty that was not given. And the same against Aston Villa. But for this one against Liverpool, I don't want to talk about it too much. I'm sure Fabinho is an honest player and the correct player, but these fouls and accidents can happen on the pitch. So he refused to sort of, judge him too harshly. It was interesting. After the game, a journalist sort of went in fairly hard at Klopp, essentially saying, Liverpool fell apart in the final 20 minutes, and in that period there were these two, there was a spate of bad fouls, and Klopp sort of disagreed and said that I don't think other managers are scrutinised as much when the yellow cards are handed out to their teams for bad tackles and whatnot. But it's not looking great. I mean, it's still too early to say. De Zerbi, he said he gave him a kiss after the game. Bless him. But to Ferguson, not Klopp. But yeah, I mean, this is, I'm just spitballing here, but I remember after the Brentford game earlier this season, Mitoma was spotted in sort of an ankle brace, and it was on crutches, and he only missed a couple of weeks. This is a different injury because this looks like it could be maybe a bad ankle injury, but hopefully it's not too serious. Obviously, it's not ideal timing for Brighton because they don't have an abundance of sort of attacking talent when it comes to sort of out and out number nines. Obviously, Danny Welbeck's has just come back from an injury and has an injury-prone career. Dennis Undav hasn't obviously hit the heights that many Brighton fans would have hoped up front, and Ferguson looked like, I mean, for me, he definitely played better than Welbeck yesterday. I thought Welbeck was fairly ineffective, whereas Ferguson seemed to have a lot more to his game in terms of dropping deep, setting attacks, getting the ball out fast in terms of his distribution and pretty accurate. And if he was a little bit more on it, he could have actually scored a goal. I think one of his touches let him down, and then Trent Alexander-Arnold cleared off the line. But it's a real shame. I really hope he's not out, for very long, because he's been so fantastic in the last month or so. Was it 3 or 4 goals? Just for an 18-year-old, he's such a talent, and I really hope he's not out for him, but also for Brighton, because the front, if you have a front two of Welbeck and Under, that's not as threatening. But hopefully he was okay. But we will find out about that, I guess, in the coming days.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on it as well in there regarding Klopp getting questioned quite harshly by some of the journalists post match. Ibrahim Konate, Lucky to not get a second yellow. Lucky not even to concede a foul. In my eyes. When I saw it, I kind of thought it was a coming together, and then I saw it on the replay. I thought, you're not playing the ball here. There's no genuine attempt to play the ball. You're behind McAllister. You can't. VAR couldn't look at that because I don't see it as denying a Norwich goal scoring opportunity, because you got to look at the likelihood of the possession of the ball and who was in possession just before that. And because of the nature of the ball that was played to McAllister, it kind of ruled that the possession is available. So it's a 50-50 there. So that's ruled out. But there is every possibility that's a second yellow card. And VAR doesn't look at second yellow cards. But for me, right in front of the assistant referee, nothing else around him. And the referee was in a... I wouldn't say the referee was in a great position to make the call himself, but I think the assistant referee was in the perfect spot, arguably the best position on that pitch to deem that as a foul, but it wasn't. I just feel like there was a degree there where it could have been a red card, another dismissal there, possibly for Liverpool. Like you say, like I said earlier, I think some people would have said they're very, very lucky to have 11 players. Easily could have been. I mean, it could have been 9. It could have been, but I think at the very least they should have had 1 red card there. So very interesting situation there. But let's not take away from the fact that is a fantastic performance from the boys. And I don't know about you, but another play that kind of stood out for me was Tariq Lamptey. Someone whose career has been a bit in limbo in the last couple of weeks, if we are to go with what's been said on social media and the transfer rumours, possibility of him going to either Ligue 1 or in Portugal to Sporting Lisbon on loan. To me, that seemed like such a bizarre transfer situation to be in, because I think Lamptey's such a fantastic asset to the squad that for him to go and move on a loan deal, it just seemed like a backwards move for everyone involved. So for him to step up and to play brilliantly as well, he was very much showing signs of the kind of player that we have always been ranting and raving about just before that nasty hamstring injury he got. And now it seems like he's almost fitting into the way De Zerbi wants to play football as well. It's taken him quite a while, I'd say. But he seems to definitely show in that match that I can play this well. I can fit in it. Play me next week. Play me against Bournemouth. Play me against Palace. Play me against Fulham.
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, at the tail end of last week, there was talk of him going to maybe Sporting Lisbon and, like you say, interest in France. But De Zerbi basically said at the press conference on Friday, Tariq is an important player for me. Okay, he's not playing a lot, but he's still a very important player. And then he did say, in terms of a sign that he does trust him, he played against Arsenal, also the league leaders. I think Arsenal was a very important game, a very difficult game, and I showed I have confidence in him. But also, I guess if you're looking on the other side of the coin, you're thinking Pascal Gross is a midfielder. He's been put ahead of an out-and-out, right back / wing back. That's interesting. Obviously, Veltman is also sometimes preferred. So, and but prior to, he's still only had 1 Premier League start this season. So yeah, you could say maybe he had a point to prove, just in terms of putting his hand up and saying, I should be that starting right back. It was interesting. I actually thought I did think he had a good game, but I also thought there was a sort of sometimes a bit of errant passing, sometimes a lack of precision, sometimes, run at 100 miles an hour, but maybe not find the right option, have a couple of balls cut out. But on the flip side of that, he made some amazing cover tackles, last-ditch challenges, blocks just put on the afterburners and left a vapor trail behind him as he burst, back into defence. And obviously, he played his part in the goal. So overall, yeah, I think there was definitely more positives than negatives. I still think there's sort of some things that he can improve on, just in terms of his kind of precision, maybe in terms of his distribution and decision making. But yes, it was a good, definitely a good performance in him and a confidence boosting one, perhaps. He was actually asked after the game if he was aware around this sort of the speculation surrounding his future, and he just said, "I'm trying to keep focused on the training bench and trying to give my best for the team," which is, and we'll come on to it in a little bit, is in stark contrast, arguably, to a certain Caicedo's Instagram comments. But he also said on the win itself, he said it was a good win. We worked hard. We were playing against the top team, so we had to dig in at times. I feel like we are going into every game to get a win. So no matter what time is left, we always push. I'm happy that today we got the winning goal. We don't take any game lightly, and we work 100%. So hopefully this is maybe the start of him getting a run of games. I do think he needs a run of games just to help with his confidence. Like Solly March, obviously he's in the form of his life, was very unlucky, I think, not to score yesterday somehow. I think there was a cross that came in and he looked like he scored, but then Alisson made a save and then I think it ricocheted and maybe hit him on the shoulder or the head and went out. But he's basically said in the past that to get the best out of me, I need games. And I think it is hard to build momentum when you're sort of stop, start, or just having 20-minute cameos at best. So yes, it'll be interesting to see, like you say, what happens at Bournemouth on this coming weekend. Will he be given a chance, or will they go for Gross back? I think what's interesting is that I believe McAllister might be suspended for Bournemouth because I think he's picked up 5 yellow cards. So I could be wrong, but I think he might miss the game. Therefore, if Caicedo comes back, Gross might go into midfield, and then they might have a Veltman or a Lamptey at right back. If Caicedo doesn't go back, then I definitely think Gross won't go right back because they would need the bodies, and also Lallana's out. Potentially Gilmore could come in. But yes, definitely a step in the right direction for Lamptey.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that falls in quite nicely with the main subject, shall we say, that's been discussed off the pitch. Moises Caicedo does make me laugh that certain people have reported that he never turned up to training, despite the fact that he was told quite clearly from the club to go away for a few days, and the fact that he didn't turn up to training because training wasn't going to happen for another 2 to 3 hours since certain tweets were emerged, shall we say. It does seem very much Brighton are in the driving seat in these negotiations here. I think, like you said, like these agents that have jumped in and signed Moises Caicedo this month, I think they clearly didn't do their homework and underestimated how we are run as a club, how Tony Bloom likes to run things and how Paul Barber likes to run things. And we've made the message couldn't be clearer. He's not for sale. And if he is, we will only listen to offers of around about 100 million quid. Very, very, very simple. And it's not even the fact that we say he's not for sale full stop. He's just not for sale this window. We want him in the squads. We want him to push on, and we want Europe. And if we're going to have Europe, we need players like Caicedo in. And we can't find someone in, well, it closes tomorrow, the January transfer market. So we can't have 2 to 3 days for quick negotiations when there is a process in our recruitment that is second to none at the moment in comparison to any other club in the Premier League. I'm more than happy to say that at the moment because just look at our squads, really. So I think that there is a solid process there, and doing it in 3 to 4 days is just something that just Tony Bloom has no interest in. He's made it very clear how much he absolutely despises this January transfer market years ago. So again, we're very much in the driving seat in this. It is a shame how it's all coming about. I do feel like certain things have been said by certain fans is a bit unjust. I don't think this is Caicedo's doing. I think there's a lot of it coming from agents. I think Caicedo is probably relatively quite happy to stay at the Albion. That if we go with what the rumours that we've read on social media, he wasn't very much interested in the Chelsea transfer. But when Arsenal came in last minute, he wanted to explore it. I wouldn't say he wanted to force it through, but I think he really was interested in that because of the prospects of fighting for a Premier League title. By the sounds of it, probably would be very much a first teamer. But again, I think the way it's been handled by the club, I think it's been quite respectful in the fact that give yourself a couple of days off and then we'll talk about it in February. So again, there's just this it's just a bad taste from it all. And I can't help but blame the agents on this, just because they're clearly forcing a move that I would say a lot of parties probably aren't that interested in. Arsenal have only just put in their second bid. I think that's about a week or two after putting the first bid in. So they're in no rush. If they are, they would have put something in very quickly. I just feel that something's happening, and the only people that seem to be really keen on this are the agents. But it is quite interesting, and I'll leave this to you, Richie, what De Zerbi said afterwards, not just on Caicedo, but on the transfer window as a whole.
Yeah, so just before we get into that, I'll just do a for those who have not been aware of this, I'll just do a little snapshot of what Instagram post that came out on what was it, Saturday night maybe. So yeah, basically Caicedo's statement said, "I'm grateful to Mr. Bloom and Brighton for giving me the chance to come to the Premier League, and I feel I've always done the best with them. I'm the youngest of 10 siblings from a poor upbringing in Santo Domingo in Ecuador. My dream is always to be the most decorated player in the history of Ecuador. I'm proud to be able to bring in a record transfer fee for Brighton, which will allow them to reinvest it and help the club continue to be successful. The fans have taken me to their hearts, and they will always be in my heart, so I hope they can understand why I want to take this magnificent opportunity." So it doesn't specifically say that he wants to join Arsenal, but it's maybe heavily implied because this came, a few days or so after the Arsenal's £60 million offer was rejected. So yes, I would say that, it's disappointing. It doesn't seem to fit his character, but he still probably would have given the go-ahead for this to happen. He probably wouldn't have been like, whoa, he was unaware of it. So they probably put it in stronger terms than he would have. He, even though he is young, he's still 21. He is a man. He's a grown man. He can think for himself. So that was obviously disappointing. Brighton, as I say, not for sale. Good move to sort of keep him at the limelight for a few days, give him time to think, hopefully push on for help Brighton qualify for Europe. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens if, obviously Trossard kind of down tools and wanted to leave. I hope Caicedo doesn't do that. I don't think he would. That's just my gut feeling, because I think Trossard was looking for that big last move, whereas Caicedo is 21, 7 years younger. Obviously, it's a great opportunity, but that great opportunity will probably still be there in the summer. But like you say, this is the chance for Arsenal to win their first title in, nearly 20 years or so. So that would obviously be a fantastic thing to be part of. But going to De Zerbi, before the Liverpool game, he was asked about it, and he essentially said, everyone makes mistakes. So, and he did say that he was kind of, a good guy. So then after the game, he was pressed on it once more. And I'll get your take on this shortly, Tom. So he said, "It's already difficult for me to be a coach. To be a coach and a chairman would be too difficult, but Caicedo is a very, very good guy. I can understand because you are 21 and you receive a big request from a big, big team that are playing in Europe. I can understand. I would like for him to finish the season with us, but we are ready to go forward without him. I think I need some players in some positions. I spoke a lot of times with Tony. Bloom. He knows my opinion very well because we are a good team, but we can also improve from the transfer market. We lost Trossard, and if we lose Caicedo, that can be a problem for us. If we want to fight for a European spot to finish on the table, we need to stay like this with the squad that we have. He was then asked if he was surprised by Caicedo's Instagram post, and De Zerbi said, yes, I was. Moises is a good guy. And when it was put to him if he was influenced by others, probably the agents, he said, I think so. So he, I think, knows the deal. Interesting that he did say that they can manage without him. I think if he did go, that would be a real hammer blow in Brighton's chances to qualify for Europe. But it seems as if maybe Brighton are fairly relaxed, but also, no player is bigger than the club.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No player's bigger than the club. I do think that they say like Caicedo is very much a big part of the team's setup and how De Zerbi likes to set up the game. I think that's why we're kind of taking a bit of a different approach on this. And judging by, like you say, like De Zerbi's comments there seem to be very encouraging for Caicedo. I think he kind of sympathizes where Caicedo is, because I think he sympathizes, you want that big move, that's fine, but there's a right and a wrong way about it. And at the moment, the agents have gone about this the completely wrong way. And that's just not how the club does business. And I think the club are making a point here on the bigger picture to say, this is how we do things. Take it or leave it. Very simple. There's no in between. There is no option B or option C for that matter. Just take it and go. Like Barber's made it clear before. No one's bigger than the club. We always have a plan shortlist for every single player, or in case any manager or coaching staff member goes. So the structure is there. That's not an issue. I think we would manage. I think that's the key word. We would manage without him. Manage him in the same way that we could push on for Europe. Tricky, because when I look at the possible replacements and who we have in depth ahead of that, probably not so much. But we could still manage. We could still end up as a top 10 side easily, I think. But pushing on for Europe, we're sixth at the moment. Pushing on for Europe still, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tricky. We see, as much as I love to see Billy Gilmore really try and dig his heels in and actually get the work in, I don't think he'll be able to get enough time to actually settle in properly and actually play the way De Zerbi wants him to play. And I think to get himself to that level where Caicedo is, that's wishful thinking. So it's going to be a hard one, I think, but it'll be interesting to see whether or not Caicedo starts against Bournemouth this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Just to wrap up, I mean, in terms of, obviously we are currently on the penultimate day of the transfer window as we record this, so some stuff could happen, but it's interesting to think about just going back to, De Zerbi's comments saying that, I think I need some players in some position. I've spoken a lot of times with Tony Bloom about, players he needs. And obviously they have been trying to sign Matvienko, the left-sided centre-back from Shakhtar Donetsk. That, I don't know, the noises don't sound too good that would happen, but, it could still potentially happen. Obviously, with Colwell out injured, Brighton maybe are a little bit short on the left side, centre-back wise, just in terms of it's nice having that left-footed player who can... there's a good compilation of Colwell's passing and how he's just sort of, some of his passing just skewers through the defence because it's pinpoint and you don't really get that as much with a right footer on that side. It's harder to do, obviously. And obviously we don't know the extent of Ferguson's injury. You got centre back, potentially striker, maybe needing a bit more depth. And then I still potentially think that obviously Brighton are about to sign Yasin Ayari from AIK, the 19-year-old midfielder who does seem very good, but that could maybe be more of a prospect rather than one who's going to sort of go straight into the team. Obviously, we're waiting to see about Facundo Buonanotte in terms of his role going forward in the season. Obviously, he suffered a neck injury during Argentina duty for the under-20s. So there's, and Enoch Mwepu, sadly, we hope he's okay, but obviously that's maybe an athletic midfielder that Brighton don't have anymore in that attacking vein. So I do feel that if it's a long season, we're basically only halfway through the season. And if you have a cup run, that could make it harder to keep those high levels, and you might have more dips. So having that insurance and strength in depth, I think will help. And I think if Brighton are really serious about Europe, then I do think they probably need a couple of extra bodies.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well said there, Richie. We'll leave it there for you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back later on this week previewing the Bournemouth match. Until then, guys, have a good one. Take care and goodbye.